The baby wouldn't stop crying. Emma bounced little Lucy on her hip as she stood outside the fancy restaurant, checking her phone for the third time. Her date was already 20 minutes late, and she was starting to feel like the biggest fool in the world. The other customers walking past kept staring at her, a 25-year-old woman in a borrowed dress, holding a crying baby, looking completely out of place in front of a restaurant that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She almost turned around and went home right then. This whole blind date thing had been her sister's idea anyway. "You need to get out more," Sarah had said. "You can't spend your whole life working and taking care of Lucy. You deserve some happiness too." But standing there with her 6-month-old daughter screaming and drawing attention from everyone around, Emma felt anything but deserving of happiness. The worst part wasn't even the crying baby or the expensive restaurant or the fact that her date was late. The worst part was the look in people's eyes. She could see what they were thinking. What kind of woman brings a baby on a first date? What kind of mother goes out looking for a man when she should be home taking care of her child? The judgment was written all over their faces, and it made her stomach twist with shame and anger. Lucy's crying got louder, and Emma felt tears starting to form in her own eyes. She had spent 2 hours getting ready for this date. 2 hours she didn't really have, trying to make herself look pretty with makeup she barely knew how to use and a dress that didn't quite fit right. She had hired Mrs. Chen from downstairs to watch Lucy, but at the last minute, the old woman had gotten sick and couldn't babysit. Emma's sister was out of town and she didn't have anyone else to call. She should have just canceled the date. Should have stayed home like she did every other night, watching TV and falling asleep on the couch after Lucy went to bed. But something inside her had refused to give up. Some small part of her that still believed she deserved more than just work and sleep and endless worry about money. "Maybe he's just running late," she whispered to Lucy, trying to calm both the baby and herself. "Maybe traffic is bad. Maybe he's a nice guy who won't mind that I brought you along." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it. What kind of man would want to deal with a woman who came with so much baggage? Lucy wasn't baggage, she was the best thing that had ever happened to Emma, but she knew that's how most men would see it. A baby meant responsibility. It meant someone else's child to think about. It meant that Emma could never be completely available or completely free. The restaurant's front door opened and a well-dressed couple walked out, laughing together. They looked so happy, so perfect, so completely different from Emma's messy reality. The woman was wearing a dress that probably cost more than Emma made in a month, and the man was looking at her like she was the most beautiful thing in the world. Emma felt a stab of jealousy so sharp it almost took her breath away. When was the last time someone had looked at her like that? When was the last time she had felt beautiful or wanted or like anything other than a tired single mother barely keeping her head above water? Her phone buzzed and for a moment her heart jumped with hope. Maybe it was her date explaining why he was late, asking where she was. But when she looked at the screen, it was just a text from her boss reminding her about the early shift tomorrow. Reality came crashing back down on her shoulders like a heavy weight. Lucy's crying started to quiet down, but now Emma felt like she might start crying instead. This was a mistake. The whole thing was a mistake. She didn't belong here in front of this fancy restaurant with its soft lighting and expensive cars parked outside. She belonged in her tiny apartment, heating up frozen dinners and trying to make Lucy laugh so she wouldn't think too hard about how alone they really were. But just as she was about to turn around and leave, just as she was about to give up on the whole stupid idea of dating and romance and finding someone who might actually care about her, she saw him. A man walking toward the restaurant, checking his phone, looking around like he was searching for someone. He was tall and well-dressed, wearing a suit that looked like it had been made just for him. His hair was dark and neat, and even from a distance, Emma could tell he was handsome. Too handsome for her, probably. Too put together and successful looking for a woman holding a crying baby outside a restaurant. But he was looking around like he was looking for someone, and Emma's heart started beating faster. Maybe this was him. Maybe this was her date. Maybe he wasn't as late as she thought, and maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't mind that she had brought Lucy along. She took a deep breath and started walking toward him, bouncing Lucy gently to keep her calm. This was it. This was her chance to see if maybe, just maybe, there was still room in her life for something good to happen. The man was even more handsome up close, and Emma felt her confidence wavering with every step. He had the kind of face you saw in magazines, sharp jawline, kind eyes, the sort of smile that probably made women's hearts skip beats. She was suddenly very aware of her borrowed dress and the fact that Lucy had spit up on her shoulder earlier, leaving a small stain she tried unsuccessfully to clean. "Excuse me," she said, her voice coming out smaller than she'd intended. Are you here for a blind date?" He looked up from his phone, and when his eyes met hers, something strange happened. Instead of the polite disappointment she was expecting, instead of the quick glance at Lucy followed by an excuse about being in the wrong place, he smiled. Really smiled, like he was genuinely happy to see her. "I am," he said, and his voice was warm and deep. "Though I have to admit, I'm a little confused about the details. My assistant set this up, and sometimes she's creative with the arrangements." Emma felt a flutter of hope. "Your assistant set it up?" "Mine was arranged by my sister. She said she knew someone who knew someone." She trailed off, suddenly worried they might not even be each other's actual dates. "Well," he said, "I'm supposed to meet someone at 8 o'clock. I'm Alex, by the way." He held out his hand, and when Emma shook it, she noticed how soft his skin was, like he'd never done a day of manual labor in his life. "Emma," she said. "And this is Lucy." She shifted the baby slightly, waiting for the moment when he would make some excuse and disappear. But Alex just stepped closer, smiling at Lucy with what looked like genuine interest. "Hello, Lucy," he said softly. "Aren't you beautiful?" Lucy stopped fussing and stared at him with wide eyes, as if she was as surprised by his reaction as Emma was. "I should explain," Emma said quickly. "My babysitter got sick at the last minute and I couldn't find anyone else, and I know this is probably not what you were expecting, and if you want to leave, I completely understand." "Emma," Alex interrupted gently. "It's okay. Really. Why don't we go inside and figure this out? Maybe we are each other's dates, maybe we're not, but either way you look like you could use a break." Emma stared at him. In her experience, men didn't react this way to unexpected babies on dates. Most men would have already made some excuse about a work emergency or a sick relative and disappeared into the night. But Alex was standing there, looking perfectly calm and even pleased, as if having a baby crash their potential first date was exactly what he'd been hoping for. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I mean, Lucy might cry and babies aren't exactly romantic." Alex laughed, and the sound was so genuine and warm that Emma felt something tight in her chest start to loosen. "Romance is overrated anyway," he said. "Besides, Lucy seems like excellent company." They walked into the restaurant together, and Emma was immediately intimidated all over again. The place was even fancier inside than it looked from the street. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, the tables were set with more silverware than Emma knew what to do with, and everything looked like it cost more money than she made in a year. The hostess looked at them with barely concealed disapproval, her eyes lingering on Lucy with obvious annoyance. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked in a tone that suggested she already knew the answer would be problematic. "Yes," Alex said confidently. "Though I'm not entirely sure what name it's under. There might have been some confusion with the arrangements." The hostess checked her computer, her frown deepening. "I have a reservation for Alexander Harrison at 8 o'clock, table 12. But there's also a reservation for Emma Collins at the same time, table 14. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Oh no," she said. "We're not each other's dates. We're both here for different people. I'm so sorry, I should have." "Wait," Alex said, holding up a hand. "Let me think about this." He was quiet for a moment, and Emma could see him working something out in his head. "Emma Collins," he said finally. "My assistant mentioned that name. I think there might have been some miscommunication about who was setting up what." The hostess was looking increasingly impatient, and other customers were starting to stare. Emma felt Lucy beginning to fuss again and knew she was probably about 30 seconds away from a full meltdown, both Lucy's and her own. "Look," Alex said to the hostess, "why don't you seat us at whichever table is quieter? We'll figure out the details once we sit down." "Sir, I'm not sure that's." "Please," Alex said, but there was something in his voice now that hadn't been there before. Not rudeness exactly, but authority. The kind of voice that was used to being listened to. "We'd appreciate a quiet table." The hostess's entire demeanor changed instantly. "Of course, Mr. Harrison," she said, suddenly all smiles and helpfulness. "Right this way." As they followed her through the restaurant, Emma wondered what exactly Alex did for a living that made hostesses change their tune so quickly. He'd said his assistant had set up the date, which suggested he was successful enough to have an assistant. And his clothes were definitely expensive. Now that she was looking more closely, she could tell the difference between his perfectly tailored suit and the off-the-rack suits she was used to seeing. They were seated at a corner table that was indeed quieter than the rest of the restaurant. Alex held Emma's chair for her, waiting patiently while she got situated with Lucy, and then sat down across from her. "So," he said once they were settled, "I think what happened is that my assistant and your sister both know a woman named Janet Morrison. Janet apparently decided to play matchmaker without telling either of us the full story. Emma felt a laugh bubble up despite her embarrassment. That sounds like something Sarah would get involved with. She's been trying to set me up with someone for months. And my assistant loves to meddle in my personal life, Alex said. She thinks I work too much and need to get out more. He paused, studying Emma's face. Though I have to say, if this was her plan all along, she did an excellent job. Emma felt her cheeks warm, but before she could respond, Lucy started to cry. Not just fussing this time, but real crying, the kind that cut through restaurant noise and made everyone turn to stare. I'm so sorry, Emma said, bouncing Lucy frantically. She's usually not this fussy. I think she's overstimulated by all the new sounds and lights. Don't apologize, Alex said. Here, let me try something. Before Emma could ask what he meant, Alex was making funny faces at Lucy, crossing his eyes and sticking out his tongue in the most ridiculous way imaginable. Lucy stopped crying mid-wail, staring at him in fascination. That's better, Alex said, still making faces. You just wanted some entertainment, didn't you, Lucy? Emma stared at him in amazement. How did you know to do that? I have a niece, Alex said, his expression growing softer. She's 3 now, but I remember when she was Lucy's age. Sometimes babies just want someone to acknowledge that they're there, you know? They want to be part of the conversation. As if to prove his point, Lucy gurgled happily and reached out toward Alex with her tiny hands. Without hesitation, he let her grab his finger, smiling when she held on tight. She likes you, Emma said, and she could hear the surprise in her own voice. The feeling is mutual, Alex said. She's got excellent taste in finger-grabbing. Emma laughed, and for the first time since she'd arrived at the restaurant, she felt herself starting to relax. Maybe this wouldn't be a complete disaster after all. The waiter approached their table with a kind of professional smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Emma could tell he was trying to figure out how to handle the situation. A crying baby wasn't exactly standard for this type of establishment. Good evening, he said. Can I start you with some wine or cocktails? I'll have a glass of your house red, Alex said easily. And for the lady? He looked at Emma questioningly. Just water, please, Emma said quickly. She couldn't afford wine at a place like this, and besides, she was still nursing Lucy. Are you sure? Alex asked. Please order whatever you'd like. This is my treat. Emma felt her face flush. I can't drink alcohol while I'm breastfeeding, she said quietly, hoping the waiter wouldn't hear. But Alex just nodded like this was the most natural thing in the world. Of course, he said. Could we get a sparkling water with lime? And maybe some of those dinner rolls to start? The waiter nodded and disappeared, leaving them alone again. Lucy was still holding onto Alex's finger, completely content now, and Emma found herself studying his face. He really was handsome, but more than that, he seemed genuinely kind. The way he'd handled the hostess, the way he'd made Lucy stop crying, the way he hadn't even blinked when she mentioned breastfeeding, it all seemed too good to be true. So, she said, what do you do for work? I mean, if you don't mind me asking. Alex hesitated for just a moment, and Emma caught something flickering across his face. I'm in business, he said finally. Import and export mostly. What about you? I'm a waitress, Emma said, then immediately felt stupid for how that sounded compared to his answer. At a diner downtown. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Mostly. There's nothing wrong with honest work, Alex said, and he sounded like he meant it. I bet you're good at it. You seem like someone who cares about taking care of people. Emma felt a warm glow at the compliment. When was the last time someone had said something that nice about her job? Most people looked down on waitressing like it was something you did because you couldn't do anything better. I try, she said. I like talking to people and I like making sure they have a good experience. Even when they're difficult. She paused, bouncing Lucy gently. Though I have to admit, some days are harder than others. Especially since Lucy was born. It must be challenging doing it all on your own, Alex said softly. Emma tensed, waiting for the inevitable questions about Lucy's father, about why she was raising a baby alone, about all the choices that had led her to this point. But Alex didn't ask. He just waited, letting her decide how much she wanted to share. It is challenging, she said finally. But Lucy's worth it. She's worth everything. Alex smiled at that, and when he looked at Lucy, Emma saw something in his expression that made her heart skip. It wasn't pity or judgment. It was admiration. She's lucky to have you, he said. The waiter returned with their drinks and a basket of warm rolls that smelled incredible. Emma realized she hadn't eaten since lunch, and her stomach growled loudly enough that Alex heard it. You're hungry, he said. Let's order some food. Emma looked at the menu and felt her heart sink. The cheapest entree was $35. Even if Alex was paying, she couldn't let him spend that much money on her. She barely knew him. Actually, she said, I'm not that hungry. Maybe just a salad. Emma, Alex said gently, please don't worry about the cost. I asked you to dinner, well sort of, and I'd like to buy you a proper meal. When's the last time you had a good steak? Emma laughed despite herself. I don't think I've ever had a good steak. The diner where I work has steak, but it's... She made a face. Then you definitely need to try the filet mignon here, Alex said. It's incredible. I couldn't possibly. Yes, you could, Alex interrupted. Please. It would make me happy to see you enjoy a really good meal. There was something in his voice that made Emma look at him more closely. He wasn't just being polite or trying to impress her. He genuinely seemed to want to do something nice for her, like it would actually make him happy to watch her eat a good steak. Okay, she said finally. But only if you're sure. I'm sure, Alex said, and his smile was so warm that Emma felt herself melting a little. When the waiter came back, Alex ordered for both of them, the filet mignon for her, some kind of fish for himself, and several side dishes to share. He also asked for a high chair for Lucy, even though she was too young to sit in it properly. Just in case, he explained to Emma. She might like to sit up and see what's going on. It was such a thoughtful gesture that Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. When was the last time someone had thought about what might make Lucy more comfortable? You're really good with babies, she said. I told you I have a niece, Alex said. My sister lives in California, so I don't see them as much as I'd like, but when I do visit, I try to be the fun uncle. What's her name? Your niece. Sophie, Alex said, and his whole face lit up. She's 3 and she's absolutely fearless. Last time I visited, she decided she wanted to climb the biggest tree in their backyard, and nothing could talk her out of it. Did she make it? Oh, she made it, Alex laughed. All the way to the top. Her mother nearly had a heart attack, but Sophie was so proud of herself. She called me that night to tell me all about it. Emma found herself smiling as she listened to him talk about his niece. There was something so genuine about the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way his voice got softer when he talked about family. She was starting to understand why the hostess had changed her tune so quickly. Alex had the kind of presence that made people want to please him, but not in a demanding way. More like they could tell he was the kind of person who would appreciate their efforts. Lucy had fallen asleep in Emma's arms, her tiny fist still wrapped around Alex's finger. The restaurant buzzed quietly around them, but at their corner table, everything felt peaceful and right. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Of course. Why aren't you married? I mean, you seem like... She trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence without sounding presumptuous. Alex was quiet for a moment, and Emma worried she'd overstepped. But then he smiled, though it was a more complicated smile than the ones before. I've been asking myself the same question lately, he said. I guess I've been so focused on work that I haven't made time for the right person. And the women I've dated, they've been interested in what I do, not who I am. Does that make sense? Emma nodded. It makes perfect sense. What about you? Alex asked. If you don't mind me asking, what happened with Lucy's father? Emma felt her stomach tighten. This was the moment when most men lost interest, when the reality of her situation became too complicated for them to handle. He left when I told him I was pregnant, she said simply. Said he wasn't ready to be a father and didn't think he ever would be. I'm sorry, Alex said, and he sounded like he really meant it. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, Emma admitted. But honestly, I'm glad he left when he did. Lucy deserves better than someone who doesn't want her. Alex looked down at the sleeping baby, still holding her tiny fist gently. She certainly does, he said quietly. And so do you. Emma felt something shift inside her chest, some wall she'd built around her heart cracking just a little. This man, this stranger who'd made funny faces at her baby and ordered her an expensive steak and didn't seem to care that her life was complicated, he was making her believe that maybe she did deserve better. Maybe she deserved someone who would hold her baby's hand while she slept and look at both of them like they were something precious. Their food arrived, and Emma had to admit that Alex was right about the steak. It was unlike anything she'd ever tasted, tender and perfectly seasoned, melting in her mouth. She found herself closing her eyes for a moment just to savor it. Good? Alex asked, and she could hear the amusement in his voice. Incredible, Emma said, feeling slightly embarrassed by her reaction. I can't believe food can taste like this. Everyone deserves to eat well sometimes, Alex said. Even if it's just once in a while. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Lucy sleeping peacefully in Emma's arms. Emma kept expecting her to wake up and start crying, but the baby seemed as content as Emma felt. It was strange how natural this felt, sitting in a fancy restaurant with a man she just met, sharing a meal like they'd known each other for years. "Can I ask you something personal?" Alex said eventually. Emma tensed slightly. "Sure. What do you want? I mean, what are your dreams? If you could do anything with your life, what would it be?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. No one had asked her that question in, well, maybe ever. Since Lucy was born, all her energy had gone into just surviving, paying rent, buying groceries, making sure the baby was healthy and happy. Dreams felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "I used to want to be a teacher," she said finally. "Elementary school. I love kids and I thought it would be nice to help them learn and grow." She shrugged. "But college is expensive, and now with Lucy." "You could still do that," Alex said. "It's not too late." Emma laughed, but it came out more bitter than she intended. "Do you know how much college costs? Even community college? And I'd need to find someone to watch Lucy while I'm in classes, and I'd have to cut back my hours at work, which means less money?" She shook her head. "It's just not realistic." "What if money wasn't an issue?" Alex asked quietly. "But money is always an issue," Emma said. "At least for people like me." Alex looked like he wanted to say something else, but their waiter appeared to clear their plates and offer dessert. Emma was full, but Alex insisted they share the chocolate cake, and when it arrived she understood why. It was rich and decadent, the kind of dessert that made you understand why people wrote poetry about food. "This is dangerous," she said, taking another bite. "What is?" "Getting used to this." Emma gestured around the restaurant. "Eating food like this, being somewhere so beautiful. I could get spoiled very quickly." Alex smiled. "Would that be such a bad thing?" "It would be when I have to go back to reality," Emma said. "When I have to go back to my tiny apartment and my job at the diner and counting every penny to make sure Lucy has what she needs." "What if you didn't have to go back to that?" Alex asked. Emma stared at him. "What do you mean?" Alex was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I mean, what if there were other options? What if someone wanted to help?" "Alex," Emma said slowly, "we just met tonight. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "I know you're a good mother. I know you work hard. I know you put Lucy's needs before your own. I know you have dreams that you've put aside because you think you can't afford them." "That's not the same as really knowing someone," Emma said, though her heart was beating faster. "You're right," Alex admitted. "But I'd like to know you better. I'd like to spend more time with you and Lucy if you'd let me." Emma felt panic rising in her chest. This was moving too fast. Men didn't fall for single mothers they just met. Men didn't offer to help with anything serious after one dinner. This felt like a fairy tale, and Emma had learned the hard way that fairy tales didn't happen to people like her. "I should probably go," she said, starting to gather her purse. "Lucy will need to eat soon and I have to work early tomorrow." "Emma, wait," Alex said, reaching across the table. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," Emma said quickly. "You've been wonderful. This whole evening has been wonderful. That's the problem. I don't understand." Emma looked at him, this handsome, kind man who'd made her feel special for a few hours. "Things like this don't happen to me," she said. "Men like you don't fall for women like me. Single mothers with no money and no prospects. So whatever this is, whatever you think might happen between us, I can't let myself believe it's real." Alex was quiet for a long moment, and Emma started to stand up, ready to leave before she embarrassed herself further. But then he spoke, his voice soft and urgent. "My name is Alexander Harrison," he said. "I own Harrison Industries." Emma froze. Even she had heard of Harrison Industries. They owned half the buildings in the city, along with shipping companies and restaurants and probably a dozen other things she didn't even know about. Alexander Harrison wasn't just successful. He was rich beyond anything Emma could imagine. "You're?" She started, then couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm a billionaire, yes," Alex said quietly. "And I know how this looks. I know you're thinking this is some kind of game to me, or that I'm looking for entertainment, or that I'm the kind of man who thinks money can buy anything." Emma sank back into her chair, Lucy still sleeping in her arms. Her mind was racing, trying to process this information. A billionaire. She'd been having dinner with a billionaire. "But you're wrong," Alex continued. "I've been surrounded by people who want things from me my entire adult life. Women who see dollar signs when they look at me, men who want business deals, charities that want donations. Everyone wants something. And I don't." Emma asked, finding her voice. You didn't even know who I was, Alex said. You were ready to pay for your own dinner. You apologized for bringing Lucy, like she was some kind of inconvenience instead of the most important person in your life. You looked at me like I was just a man, not a bank account. Emma stared at him, trying to understand what he was saying. But this changes everything. Does it? Alex asked. I'm still the same person who made faces at Lucy to make her stop crying. I'm still the man who thinks you deserve to eat good food and follow your dreams. The only difference is that now I have the means to help make those things happen. People will think I'm a gold digger, Emma said quietly. People will think whatever they want to think, Alex said. But I know better. And more importantly, you know better. Lucy stirred in Emma's arms, making soft baby noises. Emma looked down at her daughter, then back at Alex, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few minutes. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course, Alex said. Take all the time you need. He signaled for the check, and Emma watched him sign it without even looking at the total. The casual way he handled what was probably more money than she made in a month drove home just how different their worlds were. Can I drive you home? He asked. Emma almost said yes, but then she imagined Alex seeing her tiny apartment, seeing exactly how she lived, and she felt that familiar shame creeping back in. I'll take the bus, she said. But thank you. Emma, Alex said as they stood up, I know this is a lot to process. I know I've probably complicated your life in ways you didn't ask for. But I want you to know that tonight has been the best evening I've had in years. Even with a crying baby and all the confusion about who was supposed to be meeting whom? Especially because of that, Alex said, smiling. It was real. You were real. As they walked toward the restaurant's exit, Emma felt like she was moving through a dream. A few hours ago, she'd been a single mother struggling to make ends meet. Now she was walking beside one of the richest men in the city, and he was looking at her like she was something precious. At the door, Alex hesitated. Can I see you again? Emma looked at him, this man who'd turned her world upside down in the space of one evening. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to dive headfirst into whatever this might become. But the practical part of her, the part that had learned to protect herself and Lucy from disappointment, held her back. I'll call you, she said finally. Alex nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll wait to hear from you. As Emma walked away from the restaurant, Lucy warm and sleeping in her arms, she felt like everything in her life had just changed. The question was whether it had changed for better or worse. Emma barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Alex's face, heard his voice saying he was Alexander Harrison, felt the way her heart had skipped when he'd looked at Lucy like she was something wonderful instead of an inconvenience. She'd looked him up online when she got home, sitting on her sagging couch with her laptop balanced on her knees while Lucy slept in her crib. The search results were overwhelming. Articles about business deals worth millions of dollars. Photos from charity galas where he was surrounded by beautiful women in designer gowns. A Forbes article that listed his net worth as somewhere north of $2 billion. $2 billion. Emma couldn't even wrap her head around that number. She made $22,000 a year at the diner before taxes. Alex probably spent more than that on a single business lunch. But what struck her most about the photos wasn't the money or the fancy events. It was the look in Alex's eyes. In every picture, he looked polite but distant, like he was going through the motions of having a good time without actually enjoying himself. It was completely different from the way he'd looked at her and Lucy at dinner, engaged, present, genuinely happy. By morning, Emma had convinced herself that the whole thing had been some kind of elaborate mistake. Men like Alexander Harrison didn't fall for women like her. Maybe he'd been having an off night, maybe he'd been drinking before he met her, maybe he collected charity cases as a hobby. She dropped Lucy off at daycare and went to work at the diner, trying to focus on taking orders and refilling coffee cups. But her mind kept wandering back to the night before. The way Alex had held Lucy's tiny fist so gently. The way he'd insisted on ordering her a good meal. The way he'd talked about her dreams like they were still possible. You're distracted today, said Rita, the diner's owner, during the lunch rush. Everything okay? Emma wiped down the counter for the third time in 5 minutes. Just tired. Lucy didn't sleep well last night. It wasn't entirely a lie. Lucy had actually slept fine, but Emma had been up most of the night thinking about Alex and what his revelation meant for her life. You should take a break, Rita said. Go get some fresh air. Emma nodded and walked outside, leaning against the brick wall beside the diner's entrance. The street was busy with lunchtime traffic, people hurrying past with coffee cups and takeout bags. Normal people living normal lives, not worrying about billionaires who might or might not be serious about wanting to see them again. Her phone buzzed with a text message and Emma's heart jumped. But it was just her sister Sarah, asking how the date had gone. Emma stared at the message, not sure how to respond. How do you tell someone that your blind date turned out to be one of the richest men in the country? How do you explain that he seemed genuinely interested in you and your baby, but you're terrified it's all too good to be true? She was still staring at her phone when a black car pulled up in front of the diner. Not just any car, a sleek, expensive sedan with tinted windows. Emma watched it with idle curiosity until the back door opened and Alex stepped out. He looked just as handsome in daylight as he had in the restaurant's soft lighting, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. But his expression was uncertain, almost nervous as he looked around and spotted her standing by the wall. "Hi," he said, walking over to her. "Hi," Emma replied, suddenly aware of her uniform and the fact that she probably smelled like French fries. "I hope you don't mind me showing up like this," Alex said. "I know you said you'd call, but I couldn't stop thinking about last night." "How did you know where I work?" Alex looked embarrassed. "You mentioned it was a diner downtown and there aren't that many. I might have driven around until I found one with an Emma on the staff." Emma didn't know whether to be flattered or alarmed that he'd gone to the trouble of tracking her down. "Alex, I'm at work. I can't really." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not asking you to leave or anything. I wanted to see you again. To make sure last night was real." Emma looked at him, this billionaire standing on the sidewalk outside her tiny workplace, looking at her like she was the most important person in the world. A few of her co-workers had noticed him through the diner's windows and were staring openly. "It was real," she said quietly. "Good," Alex said, and his smile was so relieved that Emma felt her heart do that skipping thing again. "Because I haven't been able to think about anything else." "Mr. Harrison," came a voice from the black car. A man in a suit was leaning out of the passenger seat. "Your 2 o'clock meeting?" "Cancel it," Alex said without taking his eyes off Emma. "Sir, it's with the Japanese investors." "Reschedule it," Alex said firmly. "Tell them something came up." Emma stared at him. "You can't cancel important meetings because of me." "I can do whatever I want," Alex said. "That's one of the few perks of being in charge." He paused. "What time do you get off work?" 6, Emma said automatically. "Can I pick you up? Take you and Lucy to dinner?" "Alex," Emma said, lowering her voice, "people are staring. My co-workers are going to have questions I don't know how to answer." Alex glanced toward the diner windows, where several faces quickly disappeared from view. "I'm sorry. I didn't think about that." "It's okay," Emma said. "It's just, this is my real life. This job, this uniform, barely making enough money to pay my bills. And you're—" She gestured toward his expensive car and suit. "I'm what?" "You're Alexander Harrison," Emma said. "You live in a completely different world than I do." Alex was quiet for a moment, and Emma could see him thinking. "What if we met somewhere less conspicuous?" he asked finally. "Somewhere we could talk without drawing attention?" Emma wanted to say yes. Despite all her fears and doubts, she wanted to see him again. There had been something about the way he'd looked at Lucy, the way he'd made Emma feel like she mattered, that she couldn't get out of her head. "There's a park near my apartment," she said finally. "Maple Street Park. Lucy likes the ducks." 7 o'clock? Alex asked. Emma nodded. 7 o'clock. Alex smiled, and Emma felt that warmth spreading through her chest again. "I'll see you then." He started to walk back toward his car, then turned around. "Emma?" "Yeah. Thank you for giving me another chance." As the black car pulled away, Emma realized she was smiling. She was also terrified, confused, and completely out of her depth, but she was smiling. When she went back inside the diner, Rita and 3 of her co-workers were waiting for her with identical expressions of curiosity. "So," Rita said, "who was that?" "Just a friend," Emma said, tying her apron back on. "That was no friend," said Jenny, one of the other waitresses. "That was a very expensive friend. Did you see that car?" "And that suit," added Maria, the cook. "That man has money." Emma felt her cheeks burning. "Can we please just get back to work?" But she could feel their eyes on her for the rest of the shift, and she knew they were all wondering the same thing she was wondering. What was a man like that doing with a woman like her? The answer, Emma was beginning to suspect, was something that would change her life forever. Emma spent an hour getting ready to meet Alex at the park, which was ridiculous considering they'd be sitting on a bench watching ducks. But she couldn't help herself. She changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on jeans and a sweater that Sarah had bought her for Christmas. She put on makeup, then wiped most of it off because it looked like she was trying too hard, then put some back on because she wanted to look pretty. Lucy seemed to sense her mother's nervous energy and was fussier than usual, crying every time Emma tried to put her in the stroller. "Come on, baby," Emma said, bouncing her gently. "Mama's already nervous enough without you having a meltdown." Finally, Lucy settled down, and Emma made it to the park just a few minutes after 7. She spotted Alex immediately, sitting on a bench near the pond, feeding ducks from a bag of bread. He'd changed out of his business suit into jeans and a sweater, and somehow that made Emma feel both more and less nervous. "You brought duck food," she said as she approached with the stroller. Alex looked up and smiled. "I thought Lucy might enjoy watching them eat." "She loves the ducks," Emma said, lifting Lucy out of the stroller and sitting down beside Alex. "We come here whenever the weather's nice." Alex offered the bag of bread to Emma, and they sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, tossing pieces into the water and watching the ducks paddle over eagerly. Lucy was fascinated, reaching out her tiny hands toward the birds and making happy gurgling sounds. "She's got good reflexes," Alex said when Lucy managed to grab a piece of bread before Emma could throw it. "She's going to be trouble when she gets older," Emma said. "I can already tell." "The best kids usually are," Alex said, and there was something wistful in his voice. Emma glanced at him. "Do you want kids? I mean, someday?" Alex was quiet for a moment. "I always thought I did," he said finally. "But I've never met anyone I could imagine having them with. Until..." He trailed off, and Emma felt her heart speed up. "Until what?" "Until I watched you with Lucy last night," Alex said, looking at her directly. "You're an amazing mother, Emma. The way you put her needs first, the way you worry about her, the way you light up when she smiles. I've never seen anything like it." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "It's not always easy. The best things usually aren't," Alex said. They were quiet again, watching Lucy try to catch bubbles that Alex was blowing from a small container he'd pulled from his pocket. Emma found herself relaxing despite her nerves. There was something peaceful about sitting in the park with Alex, something that felt natural and right. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said eventually. "Anything." "Why me?" Emma asked. "I mean, you could have anyone. Beautiful women, successful women, women who don't come with babies and complications. Why would you want to get involved with someone like me?" Alex stopped blowing bubbles and looked at her seriously. "Do you remember what you said last night about Lucy deserving better than someone who doesn't want her?" Emma nodded. "Well, I've spent most of my adult life with people who don't really want me," Alex said. "They want my money or my connections or what I can do for them. But they don't want me." "That's hard to believe," Emma said. "Is it?" Alex asked. "When you looked me up online, and don't pretend you didn't because I would have done the same thing, what did you see?" Emma thought about the photos she'd found, all those beautiful women at fancy events. "You looked like you were having fun." "I looked like I was performing," Alex corrected. "Going through the motions because it's what's expected of me. But last night with you and Lucy I felt like myself for the first time in years." Emma studied his face, looking for signs that he was just telling her what she wanted to hear. But his eyes were sincere and she found herself believing him. "This is all happening very fast," she said. "It is," Alex agreed. "And I know that's scary. If you want me to slow down, if you want to take things one day at a time, I can do that." Emma looked at Lucy, who had fallen asleep in her arms, tiny fingers still clutching a piece of bread. Her daughter looked so peaceful, so content, and Emma realized that she felt the same way. For the first time in months, she wasn't worried about tomorrow or next week or how she was going to pay her bills. She was just here in this moment with this man who seemed to genuinely care about both of them. "What would this look like?" she asked quietly. If we tried to make this work?" Alex considered the question carefully. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I've never done this before. But I'd like to find out if you're willing." "People will talk," Emma said. "They'll say I'm using you for your money." "Let them talk," Alex said. "The people who matter will see the truth." "Which is?" Alex smiled. "That I'm the lucky one." Emma felt that familiar flutter in her chest, the one that happened every time Alex said something that made her feel special. She was starting to understand that this feeling, this sense of being valued and cared for, was something she'd been missing her entire life without realizing it. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. Okay, let's see what happens," Emma said. "But we take it slow. No grand gestures, no expensive gifts, no dramatic changes. Just us getting to know each other." Alex's smile was so bright it could have lit up the entire park. Just us, he agreed. As they sat there in the gathering dusk, Lucy sleeping peacefully between them and ducks swimming lazy circles in the pond, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time: hope. Maybe fairy tales could happen to people like her after all. Over the next few weeks, Alex became a regular part of Emma and Lucy's routine. Though true to her request, he kept things simple. Instead of fancy restaurants, they met at the park or took walks around Emma's neighborhood. Instead of expensive gifts, he brought simple things: flowers from the grocery store, coffee and pastries for breakfast, picture books for Lucy. Emma found herself looking forward to his calls, to the sound of his voice asking about her day or telling her about something funny that had happened at work. He never talked much about the specifics of his business, and Emma got the impression that work wasn't something he enjoyed discussing. Instead, they talked about books and movies, about Lucy's latest accomplishments, about Emma's dreams of going back to school. "I looked into the education program at the community college," Emma said one evening as they sat on her tiny apartment balcony, sharing takeout Chinese food while Lucy played with blocks on a blanket. "And?" Alex asked, though Emma could tell he was trying to keep his voice casual. "And it's still expensive," Emma said with a sigh. "Even with financial aid, I'd need to cut back my hours at the diner, which means less money coming in. And there's the cost of books and childcare for when I'm in class." Alex was quiet for a moment, and Emma could practically see him restraining himself from offering to pay for everything. She appreciated that he was respecting her boundaries, even though she could tell it was difficult for him. "What if you started with just one class?" he suggested. "Something in the evening, after Lucy goes to bed?" Emma had thought about that too. "I'd still need someone to watch her. And I'd be exhausted all the time, working during the day and going to school at night." "You're already exhausted all the time," Alex pointed out gently. "Fair point," Emma said with a laugh. Alex leaned back in his chair, watching Lucy stack blocks with intense concentration. "She's getting so big," he said. "I know," Emma said. "Sometimes I look at her and I can't believe she's mine. Like, how did I get so lucky?" "She's the one who got lucky," Alex said. "Having a mother who loves her as much as you do." Emma felt that familiar warmth spreading through her chest. Alex had a way of saying things that made her feel like she was doing something right, like she was enough just as she was. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Always." "What was it like growing up with money? I mean, I can't even imagine it." Alex was quiet for a long moment, and Emma wondered if she'd crossed a line. But then he started talking, his voice thoughtful. "Lonely," he said finally. "My parents were always working or traveling. I had nannies and tutors and drivers, but not a lot of actual family time. I went to the best schools, had the best of everything, but I never really learned how to connect with people." "That sounds hard," Emma said. "I didn't know it was hard at the time," Alex said. "I thought that was just how families worked. It wasn't until I got older that I realized most people actually spend time together, actually talk to each other about things that matter." Emma looked at Lucy, who had abandoned her blocks and was now trying to pull herself up on the coffee table. "I worry sometimes that I'm not giving her enough. That she's missing out because we don't have money for nice things or fancy activities." "Emma," Alex said, his voice serious, "Lucy has something a lot of rich kids don't have. She has a mother who's present, who pays attention to her, who makes her the center of her world. That's worth more than all the toys and expensive schools in the world." "You really think so?" "I know so," Alex said. "I would have traded all the money in the world for a mother who looked at me the way you look at Lucy." Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She'd never thought about it that way, that her constant presence in Lucy's life, her attention and worry and love, might actually be more valuable than the things she couldn't afford to give her daughter. "Besides," Alex said, his tone lightening, "Lucy seems pretty happy to me." As if to prove his point, Lucy chose that moment to clap her hands together and squeal with delight at her own cleverness. Both Emma and Alex laughed, and Lucy beamed at them like she'd just performed the greatest trick in the world. "She is happy," Emma admitted. "Even when I feel like I'm failing at everything else, I can see that she's happy." "You're not failing at anything," Alex said firmly. "You're raising a beautiful, smart, joyful little girl, and you're doing it all on your own. That's not failing, that's heroic." Emma felt herself tearing up again. "You have to stop saying things like that." "Why?" "Because you're going to make me cry and I'm trying to eat lo mein." Alex laughed, and the sound was so warm and genuine that Emma felt herself falling a little bit deeper. She was starting to understand that what she felt for Alex wasn't just gratitude or attraction. It was something deeper, something that scared her because it felt so real. "Alex," she said quietly, "what are we doing?" What do you mean? I mean, what is this? Emma gestured between them. Are we dating? Are we friends? Are we just figuring it out as we go? Alex set down his chopsticks and looked at her directly. What would you like us to be? I don't know, Emma admitted. I've never been in a situation like this before. I don't know how to navigate it. Neither do I, Alex said. But I know how I feel about you. How do you feel about me? Alex reached across the small table and took her hand. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. Both of you. Emma looked down at their joined hands, at the way his fingers fit perfectly between hers. I'm scared, she said quietly. Of what? Of this being too good to be true, Emma said. Of you waking up one day and realizing that I'm just a waitress with a baby and a lot of problems. Emma, Alex said, squeezing her hand gently, you're not just anything. You're everything. And as Lucy babbled happily in the background and the sun set over the city beyond Emma's tiny balcony, Emma found herself believing that maybe, just maybe, Alex was right. 3 weeks later, Emma's carefully constructed walls finally came down completely, though not in the way she'd expected. It started when Lucy got sick. Not seriously sick, just a regular baby cold, but Emma had never dealt with a sick baby before and she was terrified. Lucy's tiny cough sounded awful, her nose was stuffed up, and she was running a low fever that had Emma checking on her every 10 minutes throughout the night. By the second day, Emma was exhausted and panicking. She'd called the pediatrician twice, but they kept telling her it was just a cold and to keep Lucy hydrated and comfortable. Emma had missed 2 shifts at the diner because she couldn't leave Lucy with the daycare when she was sick, which meant money she couldn't afford to lose. She was sitting on her couch at 2 in the afternoon, bouncing a crying Lucy and fighting back tears of her own, when Alex called. Hi, she said, trying to sound normal even though her voice was hoarse from lack of sleep. Emma? What's wrong? Nothing, she said automatically. Lucy just has a little cold. You sound terrible, Alex said. And Lucy sounds miserable. Can I come over? You don't need to do that, Emma said. It's just a cold. We'll be fine. But even as she said it, Lucy let out another pitiful wail, and Emma felt her composure cracking. I'm coming over, Alex said firmly. Alex, no, you could get sick and you have important business things. Emma, Alex interrupted, I'm coming over. Give me 20 minutes. When he arrived, Emma was still in her pajamas from the night before, her hair was a mess, and Lucy was crying so hard her little face was bright red. Emma opened the door feeling like the worst mother in the world. But Alex took one look at both of them and immediately stepped forward, gently lifting Lucy from Emma's arms. Hey there, little one, he said softly, holding Lucy against his chest and swaying gently. You're feeling pretty awful, aren't you? To Emma's amazement, Lucy's crying quieted to soft whimpers almost immediately. How did you? Emma started. Sometimes they just need a different person to hold them for a while, Alex said. My sister taught me that when Sophie was teething. Emma sank onto the couch, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. I don't know what I'm doing, she said quietly. I keep thinking I'm getting the hang of this whole mother thing, and then something like this happens and I realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Alex sat beside her, still holding Lucy, who had now stopped crying entirely and was looking up at him with wide, watery eyes. You know exactly what you're doing, Alex said. You've been taking care of her for 2 days straight. You called the doctor. You stayed home from work. You're doing everything right. I missed 2 shifts, Emma said miserably. I can't afford to miss work, but I couldn't leave her at daycare when she's sick. Alex was quiet for a moment. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Why won't you let me help you? Emma looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, Alex said. You're worried about missing work shifts because you need every dollar. I could solve that problem in about 30 seconds, but you won't let me. Because that's not how relationships work, Emma said. I can't just let you pay my bills. Why not? Because then what am I bringing to this relationship? Emma asked. What do I have to offer you if you're taking care of everything? Alex shifted Lucy to one arm and reached for Emma's hand with the other. You're bringing yourself, he said simply. You're bringing Lucy. You're bringing honesty and kindness and the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. You're bringing conversations that actually matter and a perspective on life that I've never had. You're bringing love, Emma. Real love, not the kind that comes with conditions or expectations. Emma felt tears starting to slide down her cheeks. But money makes things unequal between us. Money is just a thing, Alex said. It's not what makes a relationship equal or unequal. What makes a relationship equal is both people caring about each other, both people being honest with each other, both people being willing to be vulnerable with each other. I am vulnerable with you, Emma said quietly. I know, Alex said. And that means everything to me. But letting me help with practical things, that's not about money. That's about being a team. Emma looked at Lucy, who had fallen asleep in Alex's arms, her little face finally peaceful. I've been on my own for so long, she said. I don't know how to be part of a team. We'll figure it out together, Alex said. That evening, after Lucy was feeling better and sleeping soundly in her crib, Emma and Alex sat on the couch talking until nearly midnight. For the first time, Emma told him everything about how scared she'd been when she found out she was pregnant, about how alone she'd felt when Lucy's father left, about the nights when she'd lain awake wondering if she was strong enough to do this on her own. And Alex told her about his own fears, about never being sure if people liked him for himself or for his money, about feeling responsible for so many employees and business decisions that affected thousands of people, about worrying that he'd never learned how to have a real relationship because he'd never seen his parents have one. I used to think being rich would solve all my problems, Emma said, curled up against Alex's side. And I used to think being rich was the source of all my problems, Alex replied, his arm tightened around her. Maybe it's not about the money at all, Emma said. Maybe it's about finding the right person to share your life with, Alex agreed. As Emma drifted off to sleep that night, Alex's words echoing in her mind, she realized that something fundamental had shifted between them. They weren't just dating anymore, weren't just figuring things out as they went along. They were falling in love. 2 months later, Emma's life had changed in ways both small and profound. Alex had kept his word about taking things slowly, but he'd also quietly begun solving problems that Emma hadn't even asked him to solve. When her car broke down, a tow truck appeared within an hour to take it to the best mechanic in the city, and somehow the bill had already been paid. When Lucy needed her 6-month vaccines, Emma found herself with an appointment at the most respected pediatrician in town, and again, the payment had been mysteriously handled. I told you I didn't want you paying for things, Emma said one evening as they walked through the park with Lucy in her stroller. I'm not paying for things, Alex said innocently. I'm just making sure things get taken care of. That's the same thing. Is it? Alex asked. Because it seems to me like I'm just making sure the people I care about are safe and healthy. Isn't that what people do when they love someone? Emma stopped walking. What did you say? Alex stopped too, and she could see him realizing what he'd just said. I said, isn't that what people do when they love someone? Do you? Emma asked quietly. Love me? Alex reached for her hands, his expression serious. Emma, I've been in love with you since the night you sat at the wrong table and let me hold Lucy's hand while she slept. I've been waiting for the right time to tell you, but apparently my mouth had other plans. Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Alex. I know it's fast, he said quickly. I know we haven't been together very long, and I know your life is complicated, and I know I probably should have waited longer to tell you how I feel, but I can't help it. I love you, Emma. I love Lucy. I love the way you make me feel like I'm home. Emma stared at him, this beautiful, kind, impossibly wealthy man who was standing in the middle of a public park telling her he loved her, and she felt something break open in her chest. I love you too, she said, and the words came out in a rush. I've been trying not to because I was scared and because I thought it was too soon, and because I kept thinking you'd come to your senses and realize you could do better, but I can't help it either. I love you. Alex's smile was so bright it could have powered the entire city. Really? Really? Emma said, laughing through the tears that had started sliding down her cheeks. Alex stepped closer and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Can I kiss you? I thought you'd never ask, Emma said. When Alex kissed her, soft and gentle and full of promise, Emma felt like her entire world was rearranging itself around this moment. Lucy chose that exact instant to start babbling loudly from her stroller, as if she was commenting on the romantic scene, and both Emma and Alex laughed against each other's lips. I think she approves, Alex said, pulling back just enough to look into Emma's eyes. She has good taste, Emma said. That night, after Lucy was asleep and they were sitting on Emma's couch sharing a bottle of wine that Alex had brought, Emma found herself thinking about how much her life had changed in just a few months. What are you thinking about? Alex asked, noticing her contemplative mood. Just everything, Emma said. 6 months ago I was working double shifts and barely making rent, and I thought that was just going to be my life forever. I thought I'd missed my chance at happiness when Lucy's father left. And now I feel like anything is possible, Emma said. Like maybe I can go back to school, maybe I can become a teacher, maybe Lucy can have the kind of childhood I always wanted to give her. Alex was quiet for a moment. Emma, can I tell you something? Of course. I've been thinking about asking you to move in with me, Alex said. Not right away and not because I think you need rescuing or because I want to change your life. But because I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to help you give Lucy the kind of childhood you're talking about. I want us to be a family. Emma felt her breath catch. Alex. I know it's a big step, he said quickly. And I know you value your independence and I'm not trying to rush you into anything. But I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I can't imagine my life without you and Lucy in it. Emma looked around her tiny apartment, with its hand-me-down furniture and water stains on the ceiling, and then she looked at Alex, who was watching her with hopeful, nervous eyes. What would that look like? She asked quietly. Whatever you want it to look like, Alex said. I have a house with plenty of space, but if you'd rather get a place together that's ours, we can do that. If you want to keep working at the diner while you go to school, that's fine. If you want to quit and focus on your education, that's fine too. If you want to start school now or wait until Lucy's older, whatever makes you happy. You'd really be okay with all of that uncertainty? Emma asked. Emma, Alex said, taking her hands, the only thing I'm certain about is that I want to spend my life with you. Everything else is just details we can figure out together. Emma looked at this man who had somehow seen past all her walls and defenses to love not just her, but her daughter too. Who had never made her feel like Lucy was an inconvenience or a complication. Who talked about their future like it was something precious and worth planning for. Okay, she said finally. Okay. Okay, let's do it, Emma said, smiling through fresh tears. Let's be a family. Alex's kiss this time was deeper, more passionate, full of promises about the future they were going to build together. And as Emma kissed him back, she realized that somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being afraid of happiness. She was ready to embrace it instead. 6 months later, Emma stood in the nursery of Alex's house. Their house now watching morning sunlight stream through windows that looked out over a garden where Lucy would someday play. The room was beautiful but not overwhelming, decorated in soft yellows and greens with a rocking chair by the window where Emma had spent countless peaceful hours feeding Lucy and planning their future. Today was special for several reasons. It was Lucy's first birthday, which seemed impossible to Emma. How had her tiny baby become this curious, babbling toddler who was currently trying to climb out of her crib with alarming determination? It was also Emma's first day of classes at the university. Not community college, the university, where she'd been accepted into their education program with a scholarship that Alex swore he had nothing to do with, though Emma had her suspicions. Good morning, birthday girl, Emma said, lifting Lucy out of her crib. Are you ready for your big day? Lucy responded by grabbing a handful of Emma's hair and babbling something that sounded suspiciously like, Dada, which had become her favorite word ever since Alex had started living with them. As if summoned by Lucy's chatter, Alex appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work but carrying a cup of coffee for Emma and wearing the slightly dopey smile he always got when he looked at them in the morning. How are my favorite girls today? He asked, kissing Emma's cheek and then making funny faces at Lucy until she giggled. Nervous, Emma admitted. What if I can't handle school and taking care of Lucy? What if I'm too old to be starting college with a bunch of kids? What if? Emma, Alex interrupted gently, you're 26, not 96. And you're one of the smartest people I know. You're going to be amazing. But what if Lucy gets upset when I'm gone? She's never been away from me for more than a few hours. She'll be fine, Alex said confidently. Mrs. Patterson is wonderful with children, and I'll be working from home today so I can check on them. Mrs. Patterson was the nanny Alex had insisted on hiring, and Emma had to admit the older woman was perfect, experienced, kind, and completely smitten with Lucy. Emma had been worried about having a stranger take care of her daughter, but Mrs. Patterson had quickly become part of their little family. Are you sure you don't mind changing your schedule around for this? Emma asked. Alex looked at her like she'd asked if he minded breathing. Emma, this is the most important day of your life so far. Of course I want to be here for it. Emma felt that familiar flutter of amazement that this man who could probably buy and sell small countries was rearranging his billion-dollar business empire around her college schedule and their baby's birthday party. I love you, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him properly. I love you too, Alex murmured against her lips. Both of you. Now go get ready, or you're going to be late for your first day of becoming the teacher you were meant to be. 2 hours later, Emma was walking across the university campus with her backpack and a schedule that included introduction to child development, educational psychology, and basic mathematics for elementary teachers. She felt like she was living someone else's life, someone braver and more confident than she'd ever thought she could be. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Alex. Lucy just took 3 steps in a row. Mrs. P got it on video. You're going to be so proud. Have an amazing first day. We love you. Emma smiled, reading the message twice. Lucy's first steps, and she'd missed them because she was in class. 6 months ago, that would have sent her into a spiral of guilt and worry. But now, she felt nothing but joy that Lucy was growing and thriving, and gratitude that Alex had been there to witness it. The classes were challenging but exhilarating. Emma found herself taking notes furiously, asking questions, feeling her mind stretch in ways it hadn't since high school. During lunch, she called Alex to check on Lucy and to share her excitement about everything she was learning. You sound happy, Alex said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I am happy, Emma realized. I'm really, really happy. Good, Alex said. That's exactly how you should sound. That evening, their house was filled with friends and family for Lucy's birthday party. Emma's sister Sarah was there, along with Rita and some of the other waitresses from the diner. Alex's sister had flown in from California with her 3-year-old daughter Sophie, who immediately appointed herself Lucy's big sister and protector. Emma watched from the kitchen as Alex sat on the living room floor with Lucy in his lap, helping her unwrap presents while Sophie provided commentary on each gift. He looked completely natural, completely happy, like he'd been born to be a father. He's good with her, Sarah said, joining Emma by the kitchen counter. He's good with both of us, Emma said. Are you happy? Sarah asked, and Emma could hear the underlying question. Are you sure this is real? Are you sure it's going to last? Emma thought about the question seriously. I'm happier than I ever thought possible, she said finally. 6 months ago, I was terrified that I wasn't enough for Lucy, that I couldn't give her everything she deserved. Now I look at her, and I see this confident, joyful little girl who's surrounded by people who love her. She has Alex who would do anything for her. She has Mrs. Patterson who spoils her rotten. She has you and Sophie and all these people who think she's amazing. And she has you, Sarah said quietly. And she has me, Emma agreed. But the difference is now I know that I'm enough. I'm enough because I love her, and I'm enough because I'm willing to keep growing and learning and trying to be better. What about Alex? Sarah asked. Are you sure he's in this for the long haul? Emma looked across the room where Alex was now lying on the floor letting Lucy and Sophie climb all over him like he was a human jungle gym. His expensive shirt was covered in cake frosting and his hair was completely messed up, and he was laughing harder than Emma had ever seen him laugh. I'm sure, Emma said softly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As if he could sense her watching him, Alex looked up and caught her eye across the room. His smile was so full of love and contentment that Emma felt her heart skip a beat, even after all these months together. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Lucy was finally asleep after her sugar-fueled birthday excitement, Emma and Alex sat on their back porch, sharing a glass of wine and watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Thank you, Emma said quietly. For what? For today. For every day. For making me believe that fairy tales can happen to people like me. Alex turned to look at her, his expression serious. Emma, you've got it backwards. What do you mean? I mean you're the one who made me believe in fairy tales, Alex said. Before I met you, I thought love was something that happened to other people. I thought I was too damaged, too set in my ways, too surrounded by money and complications to ever have something real. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. But then you walked into that restaurant with Lucy, looking terrified and beautiful and so completely out of place, and everything changed. You showed me what real love looks like. You showed me what family means. You gave me a reason to come home every night. Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes. You saved us, Alex. No, Alex said firmly, you saved me. Both of you. You took a man who had everything and nothing, and you gave him a reason to live instead of just existing. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding hands and listening to the night sounds around them. Emma thought about how far they'd all come, Lucy from a tiny helpless baby to a walking, babbling toddler full of personality. Alex from a lonely billionaire going through the motions to a man who rushed home every evening to play with his daughter and help with homework. And Emma herself from a struggling single mother who thought she'd never deserve happiness to a woman who was building the life she'd always dreamed of. Alex, Emma said eventually, can I tell you something? Always. I used to think that love was something that happened to you, like getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery. Something random and lucky that some people got and others didn't. And now, Now I think love is something you choose, Emma said. Every day in 100 small ways. You choose to be patient when someone's having a bad day. You choose to put someone else's needs before your own sometimes. You choose to believe the best about someone even when they're not at their best. Alex squeezed her hand. You choose to sit at the wrong table and let a stranger hold your baby's hand. Emma laughed. That too. I have something for you, Alex said suddenly, reaching into his pocket. Alex, it's Lucy's birthday, not mine. You already gave me too much today. This isn't about today, Alex said. This is about every day for the rest of our lives. Emma's breath caught as Alex pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart started racing as he slid off the porch swing and got down on one knee in front of her. Emma Collins, he said, his voice soft but steady, 6 months ago, you changed my entire world by sitting at the wrong table. You've made me a better man, a happier man, and the luckiest man alive. You've given me a daughter I love as much as if she were my own, and you've given me a family I never thought I'd have. He opened the box, revealing a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious, a simple solitaire that caught the porch light and sparkled like a star. I know we haven't been together very long, and I know that everything about our situation is unconventional, but I also know that I want to spend every day for the rest of my life choosing to love you and Lucy. Will you marry me? Emma stared at him, this man who had somehow seen through all her defenses to love not just her, but her daughter too. This man who had never made her feel like less than enough, who had supported her dreams and celebrated her victories and held her through her fears. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, of course yes. Alex slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood up and kissed her with such passion and joy that Emma felt like she might float away. I love you so much, he murmured against her lips. I love you too, Emma said. All of you forever. As they held each other on the porch of the house that had become their home, Emma marveled at the unexpected turns life could take. A year ago, she'd been a struggling single mother who thought her chances at happiness had passed her by. Tonight, she was engaged to a man who loved her unconditionally, pursuing the career she'd always dreamed of, and raising a daughter who would grow up knowing she was cherished by not one but two parents who would do anything for her. Sometimes, Emma thought, the most beautiful love stories were the ones that started with sitting at the wrong table. From inside the house, they heard Lucy stirring in her crib, making the soft murmuring sounds that meant she was having happy dreams. Emma and Alex smiled at each other, knowing that tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new reasons to choose love over and over again. And they couldn't wait. 1 year later, Emma stood in front of a full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the Grand Hotel, staring at her reflection in disbelief. The woman looking back at her was wearing a simple but elegant white dress that fit her perfectly, her hair styled in soft waves, and a smile that seemed to glow from within. You look beautiful, Mama, came a small voice from behind her. Emma turned to see Lucy toddling toward her, wearing a tiny white dress with pink flowers and carrying a small basket that was supposed to hold flower petals but was currently filled with goldfish crackers that Mrs. Patterson had given her to keep her occupied. Thank you, baby girl, Emma said, scooping Lucy up and spinning her around. Are you ready to be the best flower girl ever? Lucy clapped her hands and babbled something that sounded like, Dada wedding, which had been her favorite phrase for weeks. That's right, Emma said, settling Lucy on her hip. Today Mama and Dada are getting married, and you get to walk down the aisle and throw flower petals everywhere. The door opened and Sarah rushed in, looking slightly frazzled but beautiful in her maid of honor dress. The photographer wants a few more pictures before the ceremony, Sarah said, then stopped and stared at Emma. Oh my God, you look incredible. I feel incredible, Emma said, and she meant it. After months of planning a wedding that had to balance Alex's desire to give her everything with Emma's insistence on keeping things meaningful rather than extravagant, they'd found the perfect middle ground. The ceremony would be in the hotel's garden, with about 50 guests, close friends and family only. Are you nervous? Sarah asked, fixing a small wreath of flowers in Lucy's hair. Not even a little bit, Emma said, surprised by how calm she felt. I think I've been ready for this since the night Alex made faces at Lucy to stop her crying. There was a soft knock on the door and Mrs. Patterson peeked in. Ladies, it's time, she said with a warm smile. And might I say, you all look absolutely radiant. As they made their way toward the garden, Emma could hear soft music playing and the murmur of guests taking their seats. Lucy was perfectly behaved, holding tightly to her basket and looking around with wide, curious eyes. At the entrance to the garden, Emma paused to look down the aisle. Alex was standing at the altar with his best man, his brother-in-law from California, and when he saw her, His face lit up with such joy that Emma felt her heart skip several beats. He was wearing a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, but what Emma noticed most was his smile, the same genuine warm smile that had made her fall in love with him in the first place. Standing beside him was the minister, a kind older woman who had spent hours talking with Emma and Alex about what marriage meant to them. "Ready, sweetheart?" the wedding coordinator whispered. Emma nodded, and the music changed to the wedding march. First, Sarah walked down the aisle looking elegant and proud. Then it was Lucy's turn, and Emma held her breath as her almost 2-year-old daughter toddled down the aisle, throwing goldfish crackers instead of flower petals and stopping every few steps to wave at the guests, who were all laughing and taking pictures. When Lucy reached the altar, Alex scooped her up and kissed her cheek, whispering something that made her giggle before handing her to Mrs. Patterson in the front row. Then it was Emma's turn. As she walked down the aisle, Emma saw faces she loved: Rita from the diner, some of her classmates from university, Alex's sister and her family, and dozens of other people who had become part of their extended family over the past year. But mostly she saw Alex, watching her with such love and admiration that she felt like she could float. When she reached the altar, Alex took her hands and squeezed them gently. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi," she whispered back. The ceremony was perfect, simple, heartfelt, and focused on the promises they were making to each other. When they got to the vows, Emma spoke first, her voice steady and clear. "Alex, a year and a half ago I thought my life was as good as it was going to get. I thought I'd used up my chance at happiness, and that Lucy and I would just make the best of what we had. But then I sat at the wrong table and everything changed." She paused, looking at Lucy in Mrs. Patterson's arms, then back at Alex. "You didn't just fall in love with me, you fell in love with both of us. You never made me feel like Lucy was something you had to accept about me. Instead, you made us both feel like we were gifts you'd been waiting your whole life to receive. You've shown me what real partnership looks like, what unconditional love feels like, and what it means to be truly seen and valued." Emma's voice caught slightly, but she continued. "I promise to love you with the same generosity and kindness you've shown me. I promise to support your dreams the way you've supported mine. I promise to choose you, every day, in all the small moments that make up a life together. And I promise that Lucy and any other children we might have will grow up knowing they have a father who loves them completely." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden, and Alex was blinking rapidly as he began his own vows. "Emma, before I met you, I had everything money could buy, but I had nothing that really mattered. I was going through the motions of living without actually being alive. You changed all of that in one evening." He looked at Lucy, who was clapping her hands and babbling happily. "You both changed all of that. Emma, you taught me what real love looks like, love that's not conditional, not based on what someone can do for you but simply on who they are. And Lucy, you taught me what it means to be a father, to have someone look at you like you hung the moon just because you're willing to make funny faces." The guests laughed softly and Alex continued. "I promise to love you both fiercely and faithfully. I promise to support your independence while being your partner in everything. I promise to be the kind of husband and father who shows up, who pays attention, who puts family first. And I promise that no matter how much our lives might change, you will always be my first priority, my greatest joy and my deepest love." When they exchanged rings, Lucy shouted "Dada," so loudly that everyone burst into laughter. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Alex kissed Emma with such tenderness that the whole garden seemed to hold its breath, Lucy clapped and squealed with delight. During the reception, Emma found herself watching Alex dance with Lucy to a silly children's song, both of them laughing as Lucy tried to spin in circles while Alex held her hands. Later, when the evening grew quiet and most of the guests had gone home, Emma and Alex sat at their sweetheart table, Lucy asleep in Alex's lap, just watching the last few couples dancing under the string lights. "So," Alex said quietly, "how does it feel to be Mrs. Harrison?" Emma considered the question. "It feels like coming home," she said finally. "Like everything in my life led me to this moment, to this family, to this happiness." "Even sitting at the wrong table?" Alex asked with a smile. "Especially sitting at the wrong table," Emma said. "Because it turns out it wasn't the wrong table at all. It was exactly where I was supposed to be." Alex shifted Lucy carefully and reached for Emma's hand, running his thumb over her new wedding ring. "I have something to tell you," he said. "What?" "I talked to Janet Morrison last week, the woman who supposedly set us up." Emma raised an eyebrow. And she swears she never arranged any blind date for either of us that night." Emma stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe there was no mix-up," Alex said. "Maybe there was no matchmaking scheme. Maybe you really did just sit at the wrong table, and I really was just waiting for a date who never showed up. Emma felt chills run down her arms. So we met completely by accident? Or, Alex said, smiling at his sleeping daughter, maybe Lucy knew exactly what she was doing when she got fussy and made you need to sit down somewhere quiet. Emma looked at Lucy, peaceful and content in her father's arms, and felt a sense of wonder wash over her. Maybe it had been fate, maybe it had been coincidence, maybe it had been their daughter's infant wisdom guiding them to each other. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were here now, a family built on love and choice and the willingness to believe in second chances. What mattered was that Lucy would grow up knowing she was cherished, that Emma had found a partner who saw her worth, and that Alex had discovered that the best things in life weren't things you could buy. As they sat together in the soft glow of the reception lights, Emma realized that her story wasn't really about sitting at the wrong table at all. It was about sitting at exactly the right table at exactly the right time with exactly the right people. And they all lived happily ever after.